Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. I'm sure you looked at the thumbnail. Now when I say Redis is dead, what do I mean by that? Let me explain. The open source Redis, the community loved Redis, the Redis that we all knew, in-memory data store that powered half of the internet is no longer the same. So if you're still using Redis in your environment, let me tell you, you are paying way more than what is required for an in-memory data store. But the big questions here are, what exactly changed? How do you migrate from Redis? And most importantly, what is the better alternative and how do you migrate in the efficient way? In today's video, we will discuss the exact same things. And also in the video, I have a demonstration. So I'll show you live how you can migrate from Redis to a better alternative. Everything is documented in the GitHub repository. So after watching the video, you can also try the same things. I'll share the link to the GitHub repository in the video. Finally, today's video is in partnership with BetterDB. So I would like to thank BetterDB for helping us get such good content out. Without any further delay, let's get started. Let's start with understanding what exactly changed with Redis, which led to this impact. Of course, this is a gradual process as they kept changing a lot of things. But the first thing that triggered the impact was the Redis licensing change. I made a detailed video when they changed the licensing, but to put it in very simple terms, in 2024, Redis moved from BSD3 license, which is an open source license, to a closed source license under dual licensing model. One is Redis source available license and other is SSPL, server side public license. If you are new to licensing terminology, basically anyone who is offering Redis as a managed service, it can be cloud provider or it can be SaaS solution, they have to get onto a licensing agreement with Redis. Basically, they have to pay back to Redis. Now, this is a huge impact. Why? Because a lot of people who are using, a lot of companies who are using Redis in production, they were using managed offering of cloud providers like AWS, GCP, so on. Now, it is a direct impact on these companies. And these companies, basically as a community, they were contributing to Redis, assuming it is going to be open source forever. And they also built managed services on top of that. But now with this licensing change, they had a direct impact. So basically the community, like end users did not have any direct impact, but the trust was broken. Everyone started using Redis, assuming it is going to be open source forever, but they changed it. Of course, in 2025, they moved back to AGPL v3, which is considered open source, but it was too late. Now, with this licensing change, what a lot of people did, they started creating forks of Redis, open source fork. Even AWS did that. They created an open source fork called Valkey, and people started moving to these compatible solutions. Now, at this point, later the year, what Redis did to stop people from moving to the compatible solution or as a strategy, they made the second change. They broke RDB file format. So basically, if you want to take a backup of Redis, or maybe if you want to take dump, you can create a RDB file format and you can import the RDB file onto the Redis compatible solutions like Valkey or Dragonfly DB so that you can easily migrate to these solutions. But Redis broke the RDB file format. Even if you take RDB file and if you try to move to these solutions, your migration would break. This is the second change that they made. And on top of these two changes, they also added 150 new commands to create command set divergence. So basically, when someone creates a compatible solution, what they do, they also create CLI compatibility. So if someone moves to Valkey from Redis, they can still continue to use the Redis CLI commands. But in the new version, they added 150 new commands, which did not exist in the forks. So again, this impacted the compatibility, or maybe this impacted the migration process. And all of these things had a direct impact on the costing. Let's say someone uses Elastic Cache on AWS as a managed Redis offering. Now with this change, because Elastic Cache has to get onto a licensing agreement with Redis. So obviously for Elastic Cache, managed Redis offering would be more expensive, and that turned out to be expensive for the end users as well. Okay, so we learned what exactly changed with Redis, and we also understood what is the impact of these changes. Now the question that still remains, what is a better alternative? And the answer to this question is Valkey. If you haven't heard of Valkey before, Valkey is an open source fork of Redis. Basically, when things started changing at Redis, the community, some maintainers of Redis, they set up an open source fork and called it Valkey. This is backed up by Linux Foundation, LFX. So rest assured, the project is going to remain open source forever. And also it is backed up by companies like AWS, Google Cloud, and Oracle. Obviously, this is set up with PSD3 clause license, the same license that initially Redis used to have. Many of you must be thinking about compatibility. Like, Abhishek, we have our applications already set up with Redis. That's totally fine. You must be using some libraries like Redis to interact with Redis. Valkey is completely compatible with these libraries. So basically, there is something called wire protocol compatibility, and Valkey is set up with it. So your existing client libraries, they can work as is. All that you have to do is to replace Redis with Valkey. Probably you have to migrate, and you don't have to change a lot of things in your source code of the application. So this is the best part. Now you might ask, but Abhishek, how do we migrate from Redis to Valkey? Yeah, so this is the only thing that you have to take care of. Previously, this used to be very simple, as we learned here. After the initial licensing change, a lot of people started moving to Valkey. But after that, Redis changed the file format. Also, Redis added a lot of new commands. So migration has become little tricky at this point. And also there is a tool called Riot. So if you are in the Redis community, I'm sure you must have heard of this. So Riot is a tool that helps you migrate between Redis instances or from Redis instance to a Redis compatible instance. But in 2025, towards the end of the year, Riot is deprecated. Now there is an offering or there is a flavor of Riot, but that is only for Redis enterprise customers. Basically, if you want to move to Redis cloud. So you can say the most recommended tool for migration is officially dead. You might be thinking, I can write some scripts using ChatGPT or any AI agent, probably the script for scan, get, and set. This absolutely works for few thousand string keys, but after that, let's say you have hundreds of fields, or maybe you have the list with million entries, sorted sets, TTL preservation. In those cases, your custom scripts wouldn't work. So basically, you need something that can help you with the migration process, and that migration has to be absolutely efficient. This is exactly where BetterDB comes into picture. So the strategy that BetterDB takes, this performs the migration in 3 steps. In the first phase, it performs something called analysis. And in the second phase, it performs the execution. And once the execution is complete, it also does the validation for you. So not only it migrates from Redis to Valkey, but it can also help you with the validation. Now let's try to understand how these phases are executed. And then let's go to the demo and try to perform real-time Redis to Valkey migration using BetterDB. Let's start with understanding the first phase, the analysis phase. Very simple. Imagine you have a Redis cluster, maybe a multi-node Redis cluster, and you want to migrate that to Valkey. Now, if you go with BetterDB as a solution, even before migrating a single byte of data, it starts with performing a compatibility analysis. And as part of the compatibility analysis, it scans the key space, it scans the sample keys across the cluster nodes, and this provides a detailed report. Now, imagine how useful this is. Let's say you start with the migration process and then you realize there is some blocking incompatibility. You are halfway there and only then you realize the challenges. Instead, what BetterDB does better, it first starts with the compatibility analysis. And this is where you get to know about any challenges that you might face during the migration. And this includes the challenges like hash field expiry, or maybe the module mismatches, topology conflicts, or it can be some eviction policy gaps as well. So this is performed as part of the analysis phase. Now, once the phase one is complete, looking at the report, you can take the decision. For example, in the report, you can see green, amber, or the red verdict. Let's say everything is green in the report. You can move to the phase two, that is execution phase. Now, in the execution phase, real migration is carried, and in the execution phase, BetterDB supports two different modes. One is the command-based mode, where migration is carried using the commands, and other is using the Redis shake mode. Let me first explain you what happens in the command-based mode. Now, as the name suggests, depending upon the data type that you have in your in-memory data store. So in Redis, you might have data in different data type format. According to the data type format, the commands are used for the migration. Let's say you have data in strings, then get and set commands are used. Or let's say you have data in the hashes format, then BetterDB uses headscan and headset option. The commands. Or let's say you have your data type in the list format, then lrange is used. So every single data type is supported. Now the best part here is that because the migration is carried using the commands, you don't have to worry about RDB file format change of Redis, as the migration is not carried at the file level. And then you have Redis shake mode as well. So this is the other option for same protocol migration where raw speed matters. So you can go with any of the option. Both of the modes are fully compatible for the migration process. And finally, the last phase, validation. As I told you, this is the most important phase, because in this phase, what BetterDB does, once the migration is complete, it verifies number of keys in Valkey. So it compares before migration if you have X number of keys in Redis. Post migration, you should have same number of keys in Valkey. And on top of that, it also compares the performance metrics. So if you have a pre-migration baseline, what BetterDB does, it compares the post-migration metrics with your pre-migration baseline, and it gives you metrics pass or fail. Basically, it gives you a verdict. And depending on the verdict, you can understand if your migration is successful or if there are any issues with your migration. Now that we understood the three phases, analysis, execution, and validation, let's try to put this in action and look at the demo. So for the demo, I prepared this GitHub repository. The intention is very simple. After watching the video, I want every one of you to get started with BetterDB because it's very, very simple. In minutes of time, you can migrate from Redis to Valkey. I'll share the link in the description. You can get started with BetterDB for absolutely free of cost. Right now, even their pro version and enterprise version is also free of cost. So what does this repository cover? So basically there is a README file which explains everything that I've covered in the video till now. And then there is a demo folder which we are going to use now. So I have a Docker Compose file which quickly brings up Redis, Valkey, as well as BetterDB for us. So all that you have to do, you can clone this repository and start with initiating the Docker Compose. So I'll take my terminal. Okay, so we will start with the basic installations first. So I've cloned the repository. I'm already inside the demo folder. Now I'll just run Docker Compose up -d. So I'm basically running the containers in the background. And it is creating a network for us. This is the demo network. And then we have two volumes. one volume for Redis and one volume for Valkey. Because end of the day, they are data stores. You need volume to save the information. And then the Valkey container and also the Redis container. BetterDB container is also started. Now, once all of these containers are started and Valkey and Redis is in the healthy state, the next thing that you have to do is load the data into Redis. Because initially we want to have the Redis instance ready. So I'll first load the data to Redis using the load data.sh script. So this is a simple shell script. Even if you do cat load data.sh, you can read through it. What I've done in the script, I'm loading some strings, I'm loading some hashes, I'm loading some lists, basically different types of data types. Overall, it would come up to 110 keys. I'm not taking a huge data into the data store. I'm only storing 110 keys into the data store. Perfect. So, okay, dot slash load data.sh. It shouldn't take a lot of time. Now you should have the data loaded in probably 30 seconds of time. Awesome. So we have all the data loaded and BetterDB is accessible on localhost 3001 port, which is a default port. Let's access that localhost 3001. So you can see BetterDB is connected to Redis and you can also find the observability related information. So it shows you the information like the number of operations that are performed. You can also see the log, you can see the latency, you can see the client analytics that are performed, your cluster information. If you're using Redis cluster, right now I'm using standalone mode. That's why it says you are in the standalone mode. Some of the cool features like the AI helper is in experimental state. If you want to try it, you can do it. The reason why I'm showing you all the features right now, if you go to the settings, you can see BetterDB is providing their pro version and enterprise version for free of cost. All that you have to do is provide your email address and click on get my free license key. There you go. So I got my license key. Let me paste it here and activate the BetterDB enterprise version. Cool. So now the enterprise version is activated. Going back, let me add the Valkey instance also to the BetterDB dashboard. It's very simple to do. You just have to click on the connect and provide the name of your Valkey instance. Let me call this as Valkey. Host name. So in my case, if you look at the Docker Compose, the host that I added is Valkey target. So if you're using my Docker Compose, you also have to provide this as Valkey target. The port will remain the same, 6379. Valkey is also port compatible, so you can use the same Redis port. And if you want, you can test the connection. Connection is successful, save it. It's that simple. Now I have BetterDB connected to both of these things. I can easily switch between them. So if I want to monitor Redis, I can do this. If I want to monitor Valkey, I can do this. One of my favorite features is anomaly detection. Of course, right now we are talking about migration, but I wanted to show you this because this feature is very important for DevOps engineers and developers whoever is working with Redis or Valkey. By just going to anomaly detection, you can see issues with your data store. So right now there are 14 critical issues and it provides a detailed information. What exactly is the anomaly, how you can fix it, and anything that is required. Perfect. Now let's proceed with the migration. We have both Redis and Valkey connected. There is an option here for migration. Click on it. And the first thing, as we learned in the theory part, there are three phases here. The first phase is analysis. Second phase is execution. Third phase is validation. So we will start with the analysis phase. The source is Redis. Let's select that. Target is Valkey. Sample size is 10,000 keys. Yeah. In our case, even 1000 keys would work because we have very minimal keys. Click on start analysis. You can see in no time, analysis is complete and it says no compatibility issues found. Migration appears to be safe. If you want, you can go through the details as well, like information of different data types, analysis that is performed on each type of the data type. Perfect. Now, because the analysis is clean, we can start with the migration. Everything is green. Just scroll down. You will find an option for start migration. Now, one thing that I have to mention, if you haven't subscribed to the enterprise version by providing your email address, you wouldn't see this option because in the free trial version, you don't have the migration option. However, right now everything is free pro and enterprise. So just provide it and click on start migration. You will notice the migration also goes very, very fast. So migration is completed. All the 109 keys are transferred. Perfect. So total number of keys are transferred. Because the migration is successful, we will go ahead and run the validation. Okay. So it is currently validating. Validation complete. 4 issues found. Of course, they are very trivial, but still BetterDB has provided the information comparing the performance metrics with the baseline comparison. So this is how you can migrate Redis to Valkey in absolutely no time. Especially if you are migrating your lower environments, it hardly takes 5 to 10 minutes for the complete migration process, including analysis, migration, and also the validation. Now you might have a question, but is BetterDB safe to use in terms of production? It is absolutely safe. Whether it comes to your data, BetterDB can be installed on the local machine at this point, in the virtual machine, or within your Kubernetes cluster as well, or you can run it as a container on your local host. You can migrate Redis to Valkey within your on-premises environment. So it is absolutely safe to use. And if you have any more questions on this, do let me know in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you. Once again, BetterDB Pro and Enterprise version is absolutely free of cost at this point. So if you want to use it within your enterprise, the enterprise version, you can go ahead and start your subscription with BetterDB today. I'll share all the links in the description as well as the pinned comment. Thank you so much for watching today's video. See you all in the next one. Take care.